So I have to ask, pharmacies, they're a big business, but I cannot tell you the last time I've seen more of a privately owned pharmacy. So does that make you unique? Are you one of the very few privately owned pharmacies in Pennsylvania?
So, I mean, so there's a lot of issues with that sort of, with the industry of independent pharmacy. That's what we call it when
Okay.
you're privately owned. And for years, this goes back to like, Europe paying for that. Somebody's paying the other $1,150 for that product. And what these PBMs do is they dictate how much the pharmacies get paid for these products. And as crazy as it sounds, there are a lot of scenarios where we actually lose money on filling a prescription because they have their own formulas that they use to establish what they're going to pay me. So again, I fill a prescription for you, you pay $20 because that's your copay, they make up the difference. But a lot of times, again, that difference isn't sufficient to even make me whole. So, and that's why a lot of pharmacies are going out of business. Frankly, now it's finally even caught up to the chains where Rite Aid, who has already gone bankrupt once, is literally any day now supposed to go through bankruptcy again. And I don't know that they're going to even come out. Rumor has it that this will be it. Someone will either buy them, and anything that's not bought will end up being closed. So the PBMs are sort of the bane of independent pharmacy right now because it's very hard for us to survive if you're in a scenario where you're losing money on some of the prescriptions you fill. Right?
Are there ways around
It's
that?
not a business model. It's not a real great business model. Somebody said, "Hey, I'm going to put you in business. You're going to lose money on 20% of the prescriptions you fill. You're going to break even on 30% of the prescriptions you fill, and you're only going to make money on 50% of your business." It's not ideal.
Do you think that's done purposefully? Down smaller businesses coming into the industry, or
Great question. I mean, they put up a lot of, they sling a lot of bullshit about how they're looking. Their interest is for their client, which in this case is Highmark or UPMC or something like that. The major insurance carriers are their clients, so they're trying to save them money, right? Or potentially trying to save money for the business that is paying for the prescriptions. Like a PPG, company or US Steel or Ford. They're working on behalf of them to save money, and they're kind of throwing the little pharmacies under the bus. The problem is, where that's going to hurt is the little pharmacies, are needed because the chain pharmacies just won't go everywhere. Right? They're leaving nowadays. They're leaving like low income cities, like poor neighborhoods. They're leaving there. So, a little guy could go in there and fill that gap real nicely, but if you can't stay in business, you can't make enough money, why would they? So, there's a lot of turmoil in pharmacy, nowadays, and there has been for the last couple of years. As important as pharmacy is to the system, there's constantly sort of turmoil in there. And the guys that are surviving today, when you see independent pharmacies out there, and I have a lot of friends, and they're sort of local and in neighborhoods, they're kick-ass operators because they know how to make money and survive. Whereas some of the old school guys, they just wanted to fill prescriptions, and for years they were able to just fill prescriptions and make a living. Today you have to be a little more sharp. You have to manage your inventory. You have to offer clinical services. You have to do flu shots and vaccines. Like, it's not just fill prescriptions, make money, and that's it.
Well, it's not a clip from It's a Wonderful Life either, where the pharmacy is part of the drugstore and soda shop and all this other kind of stuff.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying. Those
from back
days
in the
are
day.
over. Yeah, those days are over.
Completely done. And when you took us on a little tour earlier, which this place is fantastic. Number one, I don't know how many people ever get to see the inside of this place, but the artwork and all these other things, it speaks volumes about the personality behind this business, and it's really cool stuff. But your processes, your procedures, and I think that the different things that you've probably seen. So I grew up in the 70s, 80s, 90s, whatever, and I think back at like terms like Medicare and Medicaid and all these things. Do you remember when the whole Tylenol incident caused packaging to change? because they tampered
yeah, of
with
course,
the,
yeah.
you know,
So you and I,
all
we don't
these
have any
things.
hair. We're a little bit thicker around the
Right,
middle.
right.
This is what we're in the same age, same generation.
all
Sean.
these things that we've seen, that we've grown up with, and now fast forward, the service, and I don't know if you want to call it product that you offer, it's done a completely different way, in my opinion. This reminds me of one of the cannabis type facilities as far as the size of.
Sign me up for that.
Well, seriously, the size of the facility, the cleanliness, and safety of the front door, things like that. It's secure building, so it's different. You've got an interesting business here, man, and an interesting story. How did you start seeing a niche or slash opportunity for this?
Well, yeah, I appreciate the kind words. Right, we're
It's
very
cool
proud
place.
of the what we've done here. The culture here is very important to me. We've spent a lot of money, had a lot of consultants here, so I can say what I want to my people, right? And hopefully we can then pass that down, as they interact with our patients. But the culture here is very important to me. This Friday we have a Food Truck Fridays coming up. So we're constantly doing stuff to reward my patients reward my
Right.
employees, for the work that they do. Pretty much they're all rock stars out there, and I'm proud of them. As far as how did this come about, couple reasons. There's a couple merging pathways that led us down this road. I was in a meeting conference and they were talking about are you guys familiar, like maybe they call your healthcare plan an HMO. Are you familiar with that lingo, health maintenance organization? There was a point maybe 10 years ago that they were going to come out with HMO 2.0, and what they were calling that was an ACO, an accountable care organization. And the concept was, whereas ACO, accountable care organization, was in theory supposed to be all moving parts of healthcare under one umbrella. There was going to be shared databases, so the doctor knew that the patient was in the hospital. So the nursing home would tell the doctor that Mrs. Smith is going home today, after her hip rehab, all those things. So that was it. It was an organization, and all the moving parts of home care too. Let me throw in home care though. Like home care would know when the patient's coming home, and they would have somebody there, sort of ready to greet them and treat them. So that was the ACO. And I was sitting in this conference and said, wow, that sounds very intriguing. But the one thing they didn't mention was pharmacy. They were talking about home care, talking about physicians, talking about specialists, talking about physical therapy, talking about diet stuff, talking about nursing homes, talking about hospitals. They totally left pharmacy out of the conversation. Sean in the back immediately started, the wheels are turning. They need to get a pharmacy in that mix. So I started ACO RX, and I was going to be the pharmacy that played in the HMO 2.0, which was called an ACO. Well, long story short, ACO never really took off. There actually are some functioning ACOs. UPMC has one. I think Highmark has one. But they don't really work like the original plan was supposed to. So taking that in mind, where the ACO never really took off, we kind of pivoted a little bit and, kind of veered down the road of seniors. Obviously, seniors are a big user of medication. There's a lot of them. So seniors living at home, for a lot of reasons, aren't in a nursing home. Maybe they can't afford it. Maybe they don't want to go. Right after COVID, nobody wants to go to a nursing home after COVID. Scared the crap out of it. Everybody was in a nursing home. So I really develop a pharmacy that is more than just a pharmacy, that is on keeping people at home. As our population ages nowadays, there's just not enough nursing homes, number one. Sketchy, expensive, nobody wants to be in a nursing home, as we already said. Let's work on treating people at home. there's no doubt as the population ages, the care for this population is going to move home. Number one, the patient feels better. You're going to get better results, right? If a person is at home and you give them instructions and their meds and doing their exercises, if they're at home, they're more comfortable. You're just going to get better outcomes. It's less expensive from the health plan side, from the government side, like with Medicare. It's less expensive to keep these people at home versus having them in a nursing home. And again, there's a space issue because there's just not enough. We couldn't build nursing homes fast enough to accommodate the aging population. Work with another company, and we have a package. That using this camera right here. So this is an example of a packaging, right? So it's customized with the patient's name on it. You can see it's a breakfast, lunch, dinner, bedtime columns here, and then on the back it's timestamped to tell you exactly when to take it: breakfast, lunch, dinner, bedtime. So if you're interested in taking your medication accurately, this is a foolproof system. People that just could care less about it and aren't going to take medications no matter no matter what you tell them or no matter how much you impress upon them how important it is. But if you do have an interest in managing your medications, if you're a senior, maybe a little bit, you have some senior moments. Did I take my medications? Did I not? I'm not even a senior yet, and I don't even remember if I took my medications or not. So this pathway allows you to organize your medications to get you the right dose at the right time.
And ultimately keeps people safe.
Scenarios, we were talking about a pill case. Well, grandma's filling grandpa's pill case or vice versa. Grandma's putting grandpa's case and putting 2 pills in this one and not one in the Wednesday bucket. So yeah, I mean, this is all checked by pharmacists. It's done by technicians, checked by pharmacists, and then hand delivered to people's houses.
Customized. The packaging is easy to read. You made it convenient for people to open these. Everything.
I mean, a big part of pharmacy for many years, right, is the difficulty opening caps for people. As you get elderly, a little bit of arthritis sets in. You can't open your cap. There's no opening caps here, right? So could you imagine having to open 10 bottles, and then this one is once a day. This one you have to take twice a day. I mean, it's difficult to organize.
My mom lives in Charleston, South Carolina. I can't be there every day.
Sure.
Say I'm visiting and something happens. I don't even know where to pick up. So this would be
right. Perfect. She's a perfect candidate, right? Yeah, exactly. Perfect candidate.
You guys call this MAPS, correct?
We do. We use the term MAPS, medication adherence packaging. So it's a nice acronym to fold into marketing pieces because we'll market it like if you're lost with your medications, follow our map. Right? So there's some convenient tie-ins.
Super cool. So kind of going backwards a bit. So my research serves me correctly, you were already in the pharmacy industry, and then you kind of pivot over to start your own business. What was that like, and what is the startup cost associated with that? Because I feel like, if you start a shop or a clothing store, there's costs associated to have that inventory, but medication's a completely different world. Like, how do you start this business? Did you have to get investors, take out a loan? Like, you self-fund this? How did you pivot into this?
Yeah, business? Let's go back a little bit. Let me give you a couple minutes when I truly started when just out of school and everything. Let me give you that history, and then we'll discuss a little bit like what it takes to get ACOR started, or the tossing and turning at night of should I do this or should I not? Is this worth the risk? Am I going to go broke? Is this something I want to bite off or not? So I grew up in Ford City, PA. It's north of Pittsburgh. My father's best friend was the pharmacist in town. Clingan Smith's drugstore. Still there today. It's actually they have a half a dozen of them. But so that was my pharmacist's best friend. My dad's best friend was the pharmacist in town. So when we grew up, right, this guy was him and my dad were best friends. We'd go golfing. He'd pay for me to golf. We'd go over to their house. He had the swimming pool. He had the nice cars. He and my dad would go to the bar at happy hour, and he'd give me a roll of quarters to go play video games. So this guy was I was like, man, I want to be a pharmacist too. So literally my whole sort of, adolescent, teenage, college age career, I just knew that was why I always wanted to be a pharmacist. And then I thought a little bit, I was reasonably smart in high school, but I didn't want to be a doctor. That's a lot of school. I didn't want to be a lawyer. That was a lot of school. So pharmacist was perfect. When I went to pharmacy school, it was a 5-year program. Today it's 6, but that's a different story for another podcast. But so I ended up going to pharmacy school, and did okay. Got out. I worked for Thrift Drug at the time. So Thrift Drug was a drug chain around here, kind of like Rite Aid or CVS. Thrift Drug has since been absorbed by other companies, but that's where I started and cut my teeth, and I fucking hated it. I mean, it was the worst job. I got out there, I was ready to save the world. I was going to help all these people, and all you do is stand behind the counter with your head down, counting pills as fast as you can, and you're not allowed to look at anybody or talk to anybody or even go to the bathroom because you have to do it as fast as you can, because people are standing there waiting, giving you the stink eye. So it was like, boy, this isn't really practicing the fashion that I thought it was. So I left Thrift Drug and I went to CVS because they were not really in Pittsburgh yet, so they were kind of new, and they weren't like, the stores weren't quite as busy as Thrift Drug was. They were just kind of cutting the teeth, and people didn't have a trust in them yet, and they were trying to build their brand. Today, they're the biggest pharmacy chain out there, but in that day, this was in the mid '90s, they really weren't, didn't have a market in Pittsburgh. So I went there to work, but it was just more of the same. Fill the prescription as fast as you can. Don't talk to anybody. Don't go to the bathroom. Work 9 to 9. Work Saturdays. Work Sundays. I was like, man, this really stinks. So then I decided that I would open my own store. So I went to my mom. Mom, I want to open my own store. She says, well, I don't have any fucking money. I don't know how you're going to do that. And she says, why don't you go talk to Joe, your dad's friend from Ford City? Just find out if it's even worthwhile to do. So remember, I told you when we left, the guy had the pharmacy in town. So I said, that's great. I called Joe up, super nice guy. He said, come on up, I'll tell you how it all works. I said, hey man, great. Make an appointment, we go up there, I go up there for lunch. So meantime, this guy who had one pharmacy at the time, now he has like 6 pharmacies. He has a home health care company. He has a pharmacy that specializes in nursing homes, servicing nursing homes. So he had built this big conglomerate, over the years that we weren't really in touch with them. So very impressive. So we start talking about opening a pharmacy, and he says it's hard work and you got to be willing to do it. I said, he said it's not all you're cracked up to be, right? And he told me, here's the story he told me. He said, listen, you buy a tube of toothpaste and you put it on your shelf. It costs you $1. He says you sell it, you make $2. He said the only problem is you didn't make $2 because you have to buy another tube of toothpaste to put it back on the shelf to sell it again. So you didn't make $2, you made $1. So that was the great, that was the funny story that he was emphasizing, that it's not that easy. But so at the same time, let me just throw in, there was a point in there, my father passed away, young guy, 39, passed away, heart attack. So he says, oh, but I loved your dad. He said, if you want to buy your store, if you want to open a store, he said, I'll tell you what I'll do. You buy the store, do all the work. I'll give you the money, and we'll be partners. Well, I mean, who's passing that, right? I have nothing. I didn't know, my father passed away when I was young. My mom did, we didn't have that kind of money. I had brothers, let's don't have the kind of cash to go buy a pharmacy. So, of course, I took him up on the deal. And, arguably the rest is history. We eventually did that deal. He and I owned some stores, and we owned some other stores together. Then eventually I was able to make enough money to pay him back and buy him out. And, then I started to fly on my own. But I would have never been able to do it without Joe.
That's
Simple.
an incredible story.
It's a great story. In
There was
fact,
a
I hope to
Plains
do it for
Misericordia.
somebody else. Yeah, that's the one. Same family.
You had
Same family, same
people.
business. Yeah, same
That's
family, same business.
amazing.
Yeah, that
What
was
a
my
way
connection to pharmacy.
Through your dad,
Mm-hmm.
what a cool way to really get your feet wet.
I
in
would
an
have,
industry
listen,
that-
I would have still been toiling away. I would have been at like a CVS or a Walgreens or
Yeah.
something like that, even today, if he didn't help me out. So someday I hope to do that for somebody else.
Absolutely.
Not Jade, because I don't trust him.
No one does.
But I will do it for somebody else because I think that's, I owe it to somebody.
It's funny that
That's
you
cool.
say that because we've had multiple guests and even like entrepreneurs that I take to lunch and ask questions. They always tell me pay it forward. Like someone in their life helped them or mentored them to get them to where they are today.
Mhm.
So it's always pay it forward. And so it's interesting to hear that, you know, you had this sort of mentor. Is he still alive? Is he still?
He is not. He is not. He passed away. In fact, in May is the first annual golf outing in honor of him. So I'll certainly be there and certainly,
Okay.
you know,
Did you start
participate.
the? Did you start?
I
the
did
outing?
not. I did not. His family did.
Great idea.
His family is still involved in the store, and there's dozens of them. They're having babies left and right up there. My good friend David, who was his son, you know, David and I are still friends. He just had a grandchild, and so I mean, they have there's plenty of family members to take over the empire up there. They don't need me, so I'll try to build my own down here.
What's one of the biggest lessons you learned from him as a mentor?
The hard work capacity. I mean, again, you know, he mentioned, you know, I mentioned the story about how, I mean, he would tell me the story, like, you know, almost trying to scare you out of it, to really test your mettle and find out, you know, this is what you're getting into here. You know, I know him with the nice cars and the swimming pool and the money. I didn't know him when he was cutting his teeth and trying to figure it out. But, you know, success, I mean, there's no better way to strive for success than hard work, right? I mean, I don't know, you know, generically speaking, from a, you know, 99% of the time, if you work hard, you could be a success. So when, you know, my first store, when I owned a store, the store that he and I put together, I literally worked 364 days the very first year that I was open, because the guy that I bought the store from was a timer. And those old timers back in the day, they would just open every day. That was just the holidays. They were like, hey, medicine. They felt like the community needed them. And again, in the old days, they kind of did. Now there's hospitals that are open and chain pharmacies and so on. But you know, so they had that mentality. So when I bought him, I was afraid not to be open because I didn't know what his people expected. So the first year, I literally worked 364 days. My wife said she'll kick me in the balls if I don't close for Christmas. So, you know, we closed for Christmas Day. And, of course, nobody called, nobody even bothered. So then the next year, you know, I closed on Sundays. Nobody really cared. Everybody stayed with me and supported me. And then I went from 9 o'clock to like 7 o'clock. And nobody cared. Everybody stayed with me. So I learned a lot in that too. And you're good to people and honest, and you know, and like I said, you're a quality person. People will come to you regardless. They'll stay with you. They'll bend a little bit within reason, you know, to accommodate you, but they want to stay with you because you're doing good for them and they're going to try and support you.
And what a great kind of journey you've had. Is a good word, but think about it. You've experienced startup. You've experienced taking over something that was already established